We held each other that night, silently reaffirming the foundation of our love. The reality was that adult life is rarely forgiving. It demands compromise, resilience, and unwavering commitment. But we had learned over the years that even amidst exhaustion and conflict, love could thrive if nurtured with intention and respect. The next few years brought both joy and sorrow. We celebrated her groundbreaking research, which earned international recognition, and I achieved milestones in my career that once seemed unattainable. Yet, alongside these triumphs, health scares reminded us of life's fragility. A sudden diagnosis of hypertension on my part, a minor but alarming incident in her lab, and the gradual decline of our parents' health forced us to confront mortality in a way that was both sobering and unifying. We traveled together whenever possible, using each journey as a refuge from stress, a way to reconnect and rediscover each other. Weekends in the Adirondacks, road trips along the New England coast, and brief retreats to the beaches of New Jersey became sacred rituals. Moments where time slowed, where we could laugh freely, dream audaciously, and remember why we had vowed 100 years together so many years ago. Even amid challenges, our relationship deepened in ways that words often failed to capture. The love that had once been fiery and intoxicating evolved into something steadier, wiser, and infinitely more profound. It was a love rooted not only in passion but in mutual respect, understanding, and a profound recognition of the other's humanity. One particularly quiet evening, we sat together on the balcony, watching the city's lights shimmer against the river below. She rested her head on my shoulder, and I traced the lines of her face, memorizing them as if to ensure that no detail would ever be forgotten. "Do you ever wonder if we'll make it through all this?" she asked softly. Part 4. Trials of Midlife. By the time we reached our mid-30s, life had settled into a rhythm both comforting and demanding. Our careers flourished, hers in biomedical research, mine in software development. But with success came responsibilities, pressures, and an unrelenting pace that left little room for the quiet intimacy we once took for granted. We had moved into a larger apartment, one that felt more like home than any space we had shared before. The walls were lined with memories. Photographs from travels, letters we had written during years of long distance, souvenirs from festivals and small adventures, and mementos from life's milestones. Each object told a story, a testament to the resilience of our love. Yet, despite the comfort of our domestic life, challenges continued to arise. My father's health had begun to decline steadily, and the weight of supporting family back home fell heavily on me. I traveled frequently to Dhaka, balancing professional obligations with familial duties, while she carried the invisible burden of her own parents' aging, navigating the fine line between her career and her desire to care for them. One evening, after a long day at work, I returned home to find her sitting quietly at the kitchen table, her eyes distant, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. I knew that look. It was the one that told me she carried the world's weight on her shoulders. "Talk to me," I said softly. She sighed, a mixture of exhaustion and frustration. "Sometimes, I feel like we're living in parallel worlds. We're together, but the pressures of life are slowly chipping away at the time we have for each other." I nodded, understanding entirely. "We promised 100 years, I said. "And promises aren't only about joy. They're about patience, sacrifice, and choosing each other every single day, even when life is difficult." In the weeks that followed, I received daily messages about her mother's declining health, each one carrying grief that I could not fully absorb. I wanted to be there, to hold her, to offer comfort in person, but the miles were unyielding. I realized that love requires patience, resilience, and sometimes silent endurance. During this period, I learned the cruel truth that life often tests us in ways we are least prepared for. One evening, reading her texts alone in my apartment, I whispered into the empty room, "I want to live 100 years with you. But how can I if the world keeps taking pieces of us away?" Her reply came hours later. "It's not about how many obstacles we face, but about how we choose to rise above them. We've survived everything so far. This too will pass." It was in these words that I found a new kind of love. A love that didn't shield us from suffering, but gave us the strength to endure it together. I realized that the 100-year promise was not about perfect happiness. It was about commitment, resilience, and faith in the unseen bond that tethered our hearts across continents and calamities. Months later, she returned to New York, exhausted but resilient. Her mother had stabilized, and we embraced in silence, both of us acutely aware of the fragility and value of life. That night, sitting together on the rooftop we had always loved, she said softly, "Pain has a way of teaching us what really matters. And what matters always is us." I held her close, feeling the rhythm of her heartbeat, steady and strong against mine. 100 years, I murmured. No matter what happens, we'll endure. We'll rise above every challenge. And in that quiet night, with the city sprawled beneath us and the stars hidden by the faint glow of streetlights, I understood a profound truth. Love is not measured by the absence of hardship, but by the courage to persist despite it. The trials we faced had reshaped us, strengthened our bond, and forged a love. Part 3, Heartbreak and Resilience. The 5th year of our journey brought with it a lesson I had never anticipated. Love, no matter how deep, does not grant immunity from pain. By now, we had grown comfortable in our routines, confident in the strength of our bond. And yet the world had other plans. It started subtly. Phone calls became harder to schedule as her career took off in ways both thrilling and exhausting. She was offered a fellowship abroad in London, an opportunity she could not refuse. I celebrated with her, though every congratulatory text and video call carried the weight of impending separation. When she left, the city felt hollow. My apartment, once filled with her laughter and warmth, was quiet, the air stale with absence. Days blurred into nights, and nights into weeks. I busied myself with work, reading, and attempts at normalcy, but nothing could fill the void she left behind. The first real heartbreak came unexpectedly. During a late-night call, her voice trembled with exhaustion and stress. "I don't know how to balance everything," she whispered. "I feel like I'm failing somewhere, at work, at life, maybe even at us." I tried to reassure her, but words seemed useless. Love, I realized, could not always shield us from fear, insecurity, or the crushing weight of expectations. And yet, it was in this vulnerability that our connection deepened. I listened, held her through screens and across time zones, and learned that sometimes, the most profound love is found not in passion, but in unwavering support during moments of despair. Then came the news that shook me to my core. Her mother had fallen gravely ill, and she had to return to New Jersey immediately. I watched her leave again, the train station swallowing her up in a sea of strangers, and felt a fear that had nothing to do with physical distance. My heart ached, not from absence alone, but from the helplessness of knowing that life's trials spared no one. That summer, we finally found a small apartment together. A space that would be entirely ours, a sanctuary from the chaos of the world. Painting walls, assembling furniture, and sharing tiny domestic victories, we discovered the joy in ordinary life. We learned that love wasn't just grand gestures or dramatic confessions. It was in making a home together, even if the furniture was slightly crooked, or the paint imperfect, or the kitchen always a little cluttered. But life, in its relentless way, never allowed us to linger too long in tranquility. A phone call from home brought news that my father had suffered a mild stroke. The flight back to Dhaka was immediate. Standing beside his hospital bed, watching him recover, I understood the fragility of existence more clearly than ever. My mother's eyes, brimming with unspoken fears, reminded me of the impermanence of life. She held my hand and said, "Your love is strong, but life will test it. Remember that." Returning to New York, I shared the experience with her, and she listened quietly, her hand on my shoulder. "We've already faced distance, illness, and uncertainty," she said softly. "We can face whatever comes next, together." And so we carried on, bound by the promise of 100 years, learning that love is not only about joy but about endurance. Part 2 of our story is not defined by the romance of new encounters, but by the resilience of hearts determined to survive and thrive, no matter the trials imposed by time, distance, or circumstance.